Thank you for joining Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Michael, and today sitting in for Terry is Mickey Scornavacchio.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Oh, just another day in paradise over here. We went from freezing to flooding in Ohio, but I got nothing to complain about.
We're about the same here in the People's Republic of Illinois.
Yeah. Well, we've got a great guest with us here tonight. You guys are probably familiar with Lloyd Brunson already. He and his brothers had a lawsuit that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. I remember covering that back in my Lindell TV days. Lloyd, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great, thanks. Appreciate you having me on. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Oh, no complaints here. And Mickey, sorry, did you have an intro or something for us?
Yeah. So, Lloyd, how you doing? First off, welcome to Behind Enemy Lines. Uh, I have a couple of questions for you. First off, very interesting lawsuit that you came up with, and God, if it had succeeded, it would have took out most of the government, which would have been really cool back in 2020. We could have actually used that. Um, so tell me a little bit about how that got started. What got you to go after that in the first place?
Well, there are three brothers that were working on it, and one of the brothers had some experience suing banks, even though he was not an attorney. He saw an advertisement for a set of DVDs on how to do your own lawsuits without involving a law firm. So he had some experience doing that because of the subprime mortgage bundling. He felt like he
Oh,
was hurting.
yeah.
Yeah. So he was pushing back against some banks, and so he got some experience. He was pretty aggressive and pretty dedicated. So he learned how to file and organize pleadings, and he really learned how to do the legalese, filing properly.
Yeah.
So he learned how to do state, federal, appellate, and the Supreme Court of the United States. So he saw the 2020 election mess. He was watching the joint session of Congress where Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, mostly Ted Cruz, trying to get support from members of Congress to pause for a simple 10-day investigation because of the mountain of evidence. And they had a tremendous amount of evidence showing that it should have been investigated in just 10
Yeah.
days. And so they received Ted Cruz and the others, about 145 members of the House and Senate joined. But then, all the debacle, all the crazy stuff that was happening, and that's all the support they got. So my brother was so frustrated. He thought this is wrong, watching the whole joint session. And he waited a month before calling me. And then finally he called me up and he says, I know how to file lawsuits and I would like to do something. I would like to bring some action against all these members of the House and Senate that did not support the 10-day pause, 10-day investigation. But it's like I've been trying to think of how to do this, and I think I figured out how to do it, and that is bring a personal damage claim lawsuit against these members of Congress. Well, there's a problem with that because you can't bring a personal damage lawsuit against members of the federal government or an agency of the federal government. And so he thought, well, we're going to do it anyway. The Constitution protects right of due process to bring action against any entity in any court, right? And so he said, I want to move forward with this. He had waited 30 days. And finally he says, and I says, well, that's a great idea. I said, I love the idea. And he says, well, and here's the best part. You get to be the plaintiff. It's like, oh, gee. Let me see if I can get rid of this here on my screen. I can't pop up. Okay, so I thought, wow. Well, see, I'd been working on my Constitution books since 2010, where I heard Barack Obama disgrace the Constitution, slander it to the world on television, saying that the foundation of the Constitution was fundamentally flawed. And so I'd put my own book together of discoveries, and I thought, wow, what an opportunity to get people to read my discoveries, about how the oath of office should be enforceable it's required that Article 6 is very clear with the words, they shall be bound by oath to this Constitution. They've given themselves absolute immunity. It's like, that's nonsense. So I thought, what an opportunity. So I immediately said yes, to his surprise. He thought I was going to say, let me sleep on that. Let me take a while. But I thought, what an opportunity. And so that's how it got going. And I don't think anyone had ever filed a personal damage claim lawsuit against an agency or an agent of the government, especially members of Congress. So when we go into federal court, they were just used to looking at the paperwork and making sure that it was all in order according to the procedural, requirements. And they let us file it. Well, but then later the court unfiled it. It's interesting. On March 31st, and if I'm going too long with the story, let me know and I'll try to.
No, go ahead.
I'm really condensing it. I think it was March 31st, 2022. The docket showed that the U.S. Marshal Service was ordered by the Federal Court of Utah to issue 387 summonses and complaints. 387 that included Mike Pence, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and 384 other defendants. And so the next day, they called it back, and the judge of the Federal Court of Utah docketed it as a mistake, and that my complaint was inadequate, that it was deficient. And then they called back all the service. Now, a little side note to this is, how could we possibly get the U.S. Marshal Service to start serving our summons and complaint? Well, the federal court was really trying to help us. Even though my judge was an Obama-appointed judge, they were still trying to help us the best they could. And so the House and Senate buildings were locked down because of COVID. So I couldn't hire a process server. I couldn't hire a sheriff, anyone like that. And so the only people that had access to the members of Congress, House and Senate, was the U.S. Marshal Service. So the federal court notified me, let me know that since there was no other way to do it but through the U.S. Marshal Service, they were going to do it and they were going to pay for it. Wow. So I thought, this is pretty cool. A plus thing there. But then the next day, showing that it had been unfiled, we thought, wait a minute. Once a lawsuit is filed, the court doesn't have the constitutional authority to unfile a case if you've paid your filing fees, if not possibly, but we had. And so we thought, wait a second, they've just violated my constitutionally protected right of due process. And so what are we going to do about it? We thought, well, we'll take the federal court to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and complain to them about it. So that's what we did. It was called a writ of mandamus. I think that's what it was called. It's been so long, I forget some of these terms. And meanwhile, my other brother that wanted to participate said, why don't I file an identical lawsuit in my name in state court, see how that goes? And so he did that, and the U.S. attorneys came on board and started litigating that, and they referenced my case, and they said my case had been unfiled and that I was trying to get that refiled by the 10th Circuit. And so they proved in the litigation paperwork in my brother's lawsuit that they had unfiled my case. Now, that's very important because the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals came back with saying, oh, they didn't unfile your case. Even though the federal court had unfiled it, the 10th Circuit came back and said they did not unfile your case. They're just backlogged. And we thought, good grief, we have evidence here. The U.S. attorneys have admitted that they unfiled. The docket shows that it was unfiled. And then the 10th Circuit is claiming it wasn't unfiled. So we thought, what do we do now? It's like, well, my brother says, well, let's sue the courts. It's like, well, how do you sue a federal court and a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals? One of the 10th Circuit in Denver. How do you sue a circuit court and a federal court? So we thought the only thing we could do is sue them in state court. So we went to the 4th Judicial Court, District Court here in Utah, and filed a lawsuit. And the clerk of the court actually filed and docketed it. So here we have a lawsuit against 2 federal courts in state court. Now, when you interfere with a lawsuit, and that's what we were claiming that the 10th Circuit and the federal court had done, they had interfered with my due process right, a case that was already filed and served, partially served. So what are the damages? Well, we had to put damages in the lawsuit to make it a personal damage claim. I didn't ask for real damages, but punishment, punitive damages, which was $1 million per cause of action for all of them except three. Three of them we thought we should make it a little stiffer, $25 million each. So that totaled $2.9 billion against when you interfere with a lawsuit, you become liable for the monetary damages, sort of regardless of the merits of the case, because it hasn't been, it's not based on the merits. It's based on you violating someone's due process rights.
Yes, correct.
So here it was a $5.8 billion lawsuit against two federal courts and state court. So that went on for a few weeks with the judge not doing anything. Finally, the U.S. attorneys got frustrated and they filed a document asking the judge to please make a decision, and that if the judge could give them an extension, because we took that evidence that the U.S. attorneys provided us that they had unfiled my case, and we filed a full summary judgment motion because we had the full proof there without it having to go to trial that they did what we were claiming they did. And so finally, the judge, after sitting on it for a long time, he finally made a decision against me. And so they upheld the motion to dismiss my lawsuit against the two federal courts. So we thought we were dead in the water. And this is just one of many, I feel, miracles that happened with this. So after a while, I was notified by the court that the federal court of Utah had reversed their decision. Even though they won the motion to dismiss, they reversed their decision, and they decided to do what I was suing them to do. And they, without even asking or telling me, they refiled my case and ordered the issuance of the 387 defendants. The U.S. attorneys came on board, and it went forward. And we were able to bypass the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals because we felt like this would work under the U.S. Supreme Court's Rule 11, which is if you can show the clerk of the court that it is of imperative public importance, they will allow you to bypass the normally required circuit court. And in this case, it was the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and they'll file it under their Rule 11, which we were able to do. So that was a Hail Mary for us. Now, right now, people say, well, where is it right now? There have been cases that I've read, at least one, where a case was taken off the shelf after denied a hearing many years after it was filed. Now, the new U.S. Solicitor General is Dean John Sauer, Trump's number one litigator. He's successfully litigated for President Trump in front of the Supreme Court justices. He is the U.S. Solicitor General, and his responsibility and power is to go to the Supreme Court and bring justice to the court regardless of the 387 defendants. It's about justice and not just defending the defendants. So my hope and prayer is that at some point, President Trump, he's re-truthed about my case twice. At some point, he'll talk to Mr. Sauer, or I'll be able to talk to him and say, hey, now is the time to get it back on the docket for a conference. And if I do that, it's like, now let's not just set it for a few weeks out. Let's set it for a few months out so we can raise, instead of 100,000 letters, which has happened, we can go into the million plus and really raise awareness to the main point that I love is the violation of their oath that they violated. They created a huge security breach. They should have allowed a 10-day investigation, and with an Article 6 violation requiring them to be bound by oath. And that trickles right down to the local level. These people are taking what is supposed to be a binding oath, and they are not looking at it or treating it as it is binding. And maybe they should take a clause from the tax return and add that under penalties of perjury. They swear to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So they're really about education and awareness. So I'm excited about the awareness factor of this, and I'm hoping at some point we can get back on the docket and really raise some awareness.
That would be amazing.
Go ahead.
That's kind of a long answer.
Your case made it all the way to the Supreme Court.
That is correct.
And they stopped it, right? Do you think they stopped it because
what
would happen if it did win? What would happen if it did?
They denied a hearing. And so I filed a petition to have them reconsider, and they're supposed to give you they can give you as many rehearings as you want, but they usually just stop at 2. And I didn't get my second rehearing. I filed it, and it was docketed for a request for another hearing. But on Friday, I think it was August 19th, 2023, President Trump retweeted a video of mine asking him to support the letter campaign. It was a Friday. It was during the summer, August 19th. The court was on vacation. The justices were on a vacation. The following Monday, it showed denied a hearing without even scheduling a conference. So I know it was because of President Trump supporting this and retruthing it. Now, now that we have a Solicitor General that is in favor of this, which he would be, President Trump wouldn't have supported it if he hadn't gotten some counsel about this. At the right time, if it got back on the docket for a conference and went to a hearing, they could simply remand it back to federal court without determining anyone was guilty of anything, to open up discovery, which would be huge information showing how and why and who they wouldn't support a 10-day investigation, and that would be an incredible accountability season for the members of Congress to show why they wouldn't support an investigation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that still kills me about the 2020 election. A lot of this is why I got involved in politics and media here, was it was blatantly obvious something had gone wrong in 2020. There were too many things, too many red flags, and they wanted a narrative. They didn't want to look at any of this stuff. I mean, I remember covering your case. I remember you having you on with Mike Lindell, the Lindell Report, numerous times to talk about this, and on with Brannon House on Brannon House's evening show to go over the details of this. But it was obvious to all of us in 2020. That's what lit so many people on fire. That's why everybody showed up in D.C. on January 6th. We knew this was stolen. None of this added up. You had 7 states stop counting in the middle of the night, and they certainly didn't want to look at it. Not in any way. I'm glad right now, recently, we went into Georgia. They've seized those ballots. I'm sure you probably know Garland Favorito from Voter GA. He's working with them. We got I just blanked on his name. One of Mike's former attorneys up there working with the DOJ right now, also going through all this. We hear they're getting ready to go into Arizona, and from there, I hope they go to Pennsylvania, then Michigan, then Wisconsin, then Nevada, and we can just take this whole monster down. All of us know there was shenanigans, we'll just say, that went on in 2020. And if we don't get rid of, because it isn't just the electronic voting machines. This is an octopus with its tentacles in many parts of our voting apparatus. It's the lack of signatures. It's the voter registration and the voter rolls. I mean, you have states like Wisconsin. They have more people on their voter rolls in Wisconsin than live in the state. Tell me how that makes sense. Or you have states where you have same-day voter registration. Or as I just found out a few months ago, in Minnesota, you don't even have to have ID. You can just vouch for somebody. Oh yeah, this guy over here, he's registered to vote. He's an American citizen, so let's get him signed up. And this is the kind of nonsense that goes on nationwide. And our dinosaur media, legacy media, certainly doesn't want to talk about any of that, let alone talk about a case like yours that, again, had grounds. They didn't want this to move forward. And that was evident from the very beginning, from when you guys filed the lawsuit, when they magically pulled it off the docket.
Yeah, and this would be a tremendous exposure of what was happening behind the scenes for our Congress, and they need to be held accountable. We need to see what they were. So as the plaintiff, I could work with the Solicitor General, Mr. Sowers, and I could decide or negotiate with any or many of the defendants and take them off the defendants list in exchange for them in supporting and participating in a thorough investigation, which would be emails, phone conversations, text messages, documents, total discovery through the courts.
So, question for you: what was the reason the Supreme Court gave for not going forward?
Many times they do not give a reason. Now, if 4 of the justices were decide to move it forward to a hearing and they wanted it to win, they certainly would not do it if they knew that the 5 other justices were going to kill it. And that's where that's where it dies, is when in the hearing. That's like the final thing. So I think in preserving it, they would, even if they were for a hearing to have a successful outcome, they would vote against a hearing. So they don't even tell us how many of the justices voted in favor or against a hearing.
So going forward, the bigger fight is, I mean, Is the American system still capable of even policing itself anymore in
Well,
voting? Or
it's absolutely the final fail-safe, if you think about it. President John F. Kennedy was speaking to a White House dinner honoring all the Nobel laureates of the Western Hemisphere. This is a funny story. It's true. It sounds like it's made up, but it's not made up. And he said to them, he said, "This is the greatest collection of talent and knowledge ever assembled at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined here alone." And they all laughed, and it's like, it's so true. Thomas Jefferson, this is a constitutional republic. The people have to wake up to the Constitution. You can't just have a righteous leadership. Even with
Yes.
that, if the people aren't supportive, if they're ignorant, they're not going to be able to support an honest constitutional government. So Thomas Jefferson gave us the answer. It sounds so simple, but it's so true. He said the only true corrective for constitutional abuse is education. And what is that education? Okay, there you go. You're holding it up. Now, I have a new coffee table version of the Constitution, and it's beautiful, and it has my discoveries. This is the first publication ever to clearly prove that socialism is unconstitutional. Clearly prove that. No other publication of the Constitution has ever done that. And besides that, many other discoveries are in here too that have never been published before. This is new stuff. This is revolutionary. And besides that, it has a really terrific picture on the back of it.
Lloyd, can people get your book at your website there, the LloydBrunson.com? Can people?
Well, if you go to TrumpConstitution.com, it'll take you to 7discoveries.com, and that's where you can get this beautiful hardbound. I have a softbound, and I also have this new pocket size that's a little wider, and has the beautiful picture on the back too, and it has my discoveries in it too. So there's Q&A in the back here. If someone gets this book, and if you read the Q&A, take 10, 15 minutes, you will learn things that have never been taught in any constitutional study course. Think about it. Wouldn't it have been great to see one of our representatives or President Trump say to Zoran Mamdani, it's like, hey, good luck being a mayor of New York City, but guess what? You're required to take an oath to defend New York City from socialism. And here's the clause that clearly proves that point. So good luck with that. But that's how ignorant we are. But this book is like a speed course in 5 minutes. You can learn about the biggest clause about socialism. If you look in the book, you'll see information showing that the first 10 amendments were not defined as the Bill of Rights by the first Congress. That has hidden its power, in my opinion. They defined the first 10 amendments as further declaratory restrictive clauses to the Constitution. Well, you take one of those declaratory restrictive clauses, Amendment 5, and read the last line, and it's very clear. Nor shall your private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, the only argument I've heard against my point of view is that public use is just compensation. It's like, no, it's not. If it was, you wouldn't be compensated for having your house taken, for a road. So it absolutely is not. So that really opens up a can of worms and questions that are answered within the book. So this is an amazing opportunity for people to see about socialism. There are quotes in here from dictators about socialism, ridiculous quotes, and some great quotes pushing back against socialism from presidents. And the 10 Commandments is in there. I put that in there for Nancy Pelosi because she loves the 10 Commandments as a Catholic. And
yes.
And then I have the congressional oath in the inside cover because the congressional oath is not in the Constitution. Just the executive oath is.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that book.
I have a question for you.
General Michael Flynn purchased 500 of them for his event at Mar-a-Lago December 16th and invited me to come and participate. So we were there and every person got one of those. And then we've met some very interesting people where they're excited about this book. And I own the trademark Every Home in America. So the goal is to get this as a special gift from President Trump or from the people or organizations to get this to every home in America to raise the awareness. And if it's just about socialism, that is a huge step forward. But another thing is showing Article 6 how important a binding oath is and how it's required. And
Yes.
who the God of the Constitution is one of the discoveries in there. And when I say my powerful discoveries, it's like they're for me. And everyone that gets this book can have their own discoveries and maybe additional discoveries that they could share with me that I haven't seen.
So, Loy, you're a constitutional scholar. You understand it. You get it, right? How do you? What would your opinion be on somebody serving in Congress, such as Ian Omar or whatever her name is? How do
Ilhan
you think the
Omar.
Constitution applies to that?
Well,
Actually,
it's,
a shirt for her.
it boils back to a binding oath requirement, Article 6, and there used to be punishments connected to the oath. If you violated the oath, you could be punished, criminally prosecuted, actually, as a politician.
Yes.
So it's back to what Thomas Jefferson said. She gets away with it because not only are we the people a little bit ignorant, that we can catch up real quick on to the requirements in the Constitution, but our high-profile constitutional representatives are a little ignorant, a little in a big way. And like I said, Bernie Sanders, it's like if someone were to say, Bernie Sanders, let's take a look at what if he just heard what I just said. It's like, how do you explain promoting socialism when the Fifth Amendment is very clear in defending us against socialism or a violation of the Constitution? And it leads to other questions because showing how incredible the document it is and how socialism really is a counterfeit to the incredible opportunities that the protections of the Constitution give us if we follow it.
Yeah. I mean, this is, if we just restrained our government back into living under the Constitution, it would probably solve 95% of the problems that our country has.
Oh, yeah. Just show them what's in it. They don't know what's in it. Just like I said, just show them the binding oath. I did an experiment. There were a couple of Mike Lee, before he became a U.S. Senator, I experimented. This was around 2010. I says, on camera, I says, Mike, I said, Article 6 is very clear with the words, you shall be bound by oath. So when you become a U.S. Senator, you're supposed to be bound by oath. You're supposed to take a binding oath. And so I said, what is the penalty for breaking your oath? If there's no penalty, it's not binding. So what's the penalty? And it was like magic, just zipping it. I didn't say anything more. I just watched him think out loud. And that simple thing can cause, and I've done it more than once, where they go,
Sure.
The first thing, Senator Hatch, same answer Mike Lee gave. Well, you'll lose the election. It's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Lose the election, you shouldn't. That's not a punishment for violating the oath. And so they come to the conclusion. That they're not taking a binding oath. No one in Washington D.C. no one on Capitol Hill is taking a binding oath unless they've added their own clause under penalties of perjury. If they've done that, then they're taking a binding oath. If they haven't done that, they're taking a false oath. Now, how do they get away with it? They get away with it because we, the people, don't know it either. Once we know it, then we can say, hey, I'm thinking about voting for you, and let's look at Article 6. And the oath used to be binding with penalties attached. What do you say we fix this problem?
Yes.
So, and that's the beginning.
Yeah.
It's everything. If you question it now, I watched some of the hearings and when they were deposing Tim Walz and some of these other people. That question's inappropriate. That question's inappropriate. That question. They hide behind this woke-tardedness, I call it now.
Yeah.
It's a new phrase. They hide behind this and they use it as a shield to deflect, and the world has lost its mind.
Well, and you just gave the answer. The world, we the people aren't familiar enough in the simple ways to show them their error. It's back to the only true corrective for constitutional abuse. So they should be shown that. It's like, can you imagine
at home? It's not taught anywhere anymore.
It was never taught. When was the last time you ever heard anyone teach what I just talked about? Socialism with the Fifth Amendment, the further declaratory restrictive clauses, and the fact that there's a binding oath requirement in Article 6, and the attorneys proved to us with their defense claiming absolute immunity with the 387 defendants. So there's proof right there. And that's a simple fix. Once we gain the knowledge, once we the people, it automatically happens like an invisible arm.
Oh, might have frozen here for a second. But all right, we'll see if we can get him back on here. It might have just cut out for a second.
Interesting stuff.
Okay,
right,
we're back.
You're back. But yeah, this is kind of my other thing too, and I'll interject this into the conversation. When the civil rights amendments were passed in '64, do you guys know it's not illegal to discriminate against communists and socialists? It was outlined in the amendment as well. None of these people, these avowed socialists and communists that are at the federal level, the state level, or even at your local level, should be allowed to serve in any sort of government capacity at all.
That's
they
right.
should all be removed from office, and this is legislation that's already on the books that we should be enforcing right now, but for some reason we're not.
Well, and these are the clauses, the constitutional authority to support that.
Yeah.
And it's ignorance. Ignorance is why they're getting away with it. Tim Walz is a symptom of the problem. The problem is we, the people, have got to come up to speed, and we can do it in a few minutes with this book.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like Mickey was saying a minute ago too, none of this is taught because they don't want us to know it. They don't want the civilians, the people, to take back their country and take the driver's seat again. And they certainly don't want any accountability in DC or be forced to actually live under the Constitution. Again, it wouldn't solve 100% of our problems, but we would get pretty close. We could just get back to our founding and get the federal government back under control, get the states back under control, and remove all these people from office that are brick by brick tearing our country apart, looting our treasury, and destroying our nation piece by piece, selling us out to foreign interests.
Yeah, and it's education. It sounds so simple, but it's true. Once people become aware, it happens, and they don't get away with their nonsense anymore. So they're waving the Constitution. All these people that are violating they're waving it around, and we can't do anything because we don't know. And if everyone if just a small percentage knew what I just explained, you'd see a tremendous change. And people are going to find out, and they are finding it out. Around 50,000 people so far have received my book. So it's growing, and it's going to keep growing. And a little bit of knowledge can be very, very powerful.
So, Lloyd, what got you interested in the Constitution? What started this for you? I've done a couple of books. My books are a little bit different than yours, but I have my own way.
Oh,
but what pushed you to go that route? What got you interested in the first place?
I think it was 2010. I was watching the news, and I saw a person by the name of Barack Obama tell the world through television cameras that the foundation of the Constitution is fundamentally flawed. And I thought, he's a lawyer. He should know better than that. He's a U.S. senator. He swore to uphold and defend the Constitution. That doesn't sound like much of a defense. If he were my attorney representing me to a judge and told the judge my foundation was fundamentally flawed, I could sue him for malpractice and have him reported to the State Bar Association for removal, but have his bar license taken from him. So I felt guilty, though. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've read the document all the way through. So it guilt tripped me, and I opened it up, and I wanted to go to the oath first, the executive oath, because the congressional oath isn't in there, but it's in my book. And I read that, and to see it in print was a whole different experience than knowing what the words were. But to see it in print, it changed my life. And I thought, I've got to study this document. So I started reading it, wanted to understand every word, and it was very painful and frustrating because I felt so stupid and ignorant. And so I just decided to pray and ask for help and just go through and find parts of the Constitution that made sense that I connected with. And it seemed like since 2010, every time I open up the document, I find a new insight or a new angle, a new way to understand this powerful document. So that's what got me. So I give the credit to Barack Obama.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think Obama meant when he said do you think he even knew what he was talking about when he said?
No, absolutely not, because they don't teach constitutional law in law school. I've talked to people that have gone to law school, and they say they teach constitutional cases, case law.
Yes,
they teach case law, but they don't. So my book wouldn't be able to go into schools. Others would, because I get in and I highlight the clauses and actually talk about the clauses in my book and explain some things and the importance of them. And so my book wouldn't be allowed to go into the schools. But if I get it into every home in America, game over.
I have 7 books. None of them are allowed in schools. My son took one once, and they sent it home.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm gaining momentum with this, and then I have about 50,000 printed of the books, the small ones with my picture, and people can go to my website and get, I think, 38 of those for $38, and that includes free priority mail shipping. I just got it down there low enough. I feel like people could get like a bunch of them that have these
Yeah.
concepts and has the full documents in it as well. So they can go to sevendiscoveries.com or trumpconstitution.com to get those as well.
Nice, nice.
Well, this is something again, like this is a message that needs to get out to more people, and especially right now. People are extremely frustrated. Trump and the agenda we all voted for is essentially being railroaded by Congress right now. They don't have any testicular fortitude to actually fight for anything. They won't pass any legislation. They won't fight for America. Right now, the SAVE Act's being held hostage until for threat of endorsing John Cornyn. They want Trump to endorse Cornyn, so Paxton can't win a Senate seat, and they're holding the SAVE Act hostage for that. It's pathetic. We've got to get rid of these loser, undocumented Democrats that are in our House, and we have to get America back on the right path. We have to start educating our kids, teaching them real civics again, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what it means, your role in government, whether that's locally at the state level or nationally. If we could accomplish that, which it's going to take generations to undo the brainwashing at this point, but I mean, the Constitution is the roadmap to having a successful, prosperous, fair nation. We already have it in front of us. We just have to actually act on it. We have to gut this corruption in DC and go back to actually living under our founding documents and striving to be a better nation once again.
Yeah, we have a sleeping giant called We the People that once they get a little bit of this knowledge in them, they act, they move forward. Right now,
Yes.
in a way, they're helpless because they're trusting their representatives' constitutional knowledge, and you can't do that because they are, like I said, no one has stood up, no one has waved the Constitution at Bernie Sanders and showed him the last line of the fifth saying you can't do this.
Yeah.
So, and there's more. The focus of the book is also the Federal Reserve System. They're a nonprofit. We know that. I had a conversation in 2015 with Stephen Moore about this. We both agreed in
Yep.
theory, just want to simplify it as much as we could. And that is, if the nonprofit status of the Federal Reserve System were successfully enforced, that would bring a huge amount of wealth back to the taxpayer in the form of refunds, not just money, but we're talking about global successful corporations that have been purchased with our money without any oversight from Congress. There's an interview with a congressman from Florida, Democrat, Alan Grayson, I think his name is, and interviewing, and this like, where'd $9 trillion go? And they says, well, don't worry about it. That's not part of the tax debt. $9 trillion created and spent. Well, that's just one transaction or a group of transactions in a short period of time. How many trillions of dollars have been spent for the pockets, the deep pockets of the multi-trillionaires of the world? And I get so frustrated when I hear people talk about how rich,
Elon Musk or whoever.
And others, it's like, no, they are nothing compared to these people that are walking out with trillion plus portfolios. So
Yeah,
once that is exposed, there's a tremendous amount of real wealth that could and needs to be returned to the taxpayer, to the U.S. citizen, and then we can really enjoy an incredible economic explosion,
Yes.
really. And Trump's talking about eliminating the IRS. That's inevitable. That's got to come as things continue to be exposed.
That'd
Well,
be
we have
great.
to slay the monster from Jekyll Island, the creature from Jekyll Island. I
That's
should
right,
say.
and you do it by exposing. I call it the modern day money changers. Expose them and the invisible arm of we the people. And there's some powerhouses that just don't have the knowledge. Once they have the knowledge, look out.
I
Well,
got to tell you, we the people have been robbed. We have been robbed blind.
Yes, and a
And
lot of us don't know that. Yeah.
yeah, the thing that bothers me most, and I don't know if you guys know who Al Shabaab is.
yes,
Al
I do.
Shabaab is an arm of Al Qaeda that is based in Somalia, and the amount of money they've received for the Minnesota fraud is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
billions.
It's more than the GDP of the whole country of Somalia, and
Yes.
they are responsible for the most American deaths out of all Al Qaeda, and then we're funding it. We're
Yeah,
funding it with our own
that's
money.
right. It's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Yep. Loy, any words of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with here? We're almost out of time.
Well, I just want to remind people to go get this fabulous book, and the small ones too, at TrumpConstitution.com. 7discoveries.com is where it takes you. And a great picture on the back there. And just keep praying and asking for America to wake up to some valuable truths that can fix the problem.
Here, here. We definitely need it. You know, America, we really are at a very precarious point right now. You know, things could go either way. We could expose this corruption, go back to living under the Constitution, or we're going to fall down a deep hole that we'll never emerge from. And I really think we are on that precipice right now.
Yes. That's right.
Well, gentlemen, I want again, Lloyd, thank you for joining us tonight. To our audience, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back on next Tuesday.